only appropriate that the episode about community would feature the person who seems to know and be known by everyone, Rickey Bolden. Jason Barnhart, Stephen Cole, and Rickey Bolden discuss Chapter 6 of A Brethren Way, entitled Community in the Age of Alienation. Rickey has influenced so many in the Brethren Denomination and has brought so many new people into our own community, including Jason and Stephen. So please enjoy this conversation on the importance of community and how brethren uniquely live out the calling to be a part of the Christian community in Episode 4, Community in the Age of Alienation.
Okay, welcome to the Brethren Way podcast. I'm your co-host, Jason Barnhart. I'm here with the Brethren Monarch Butterfly, Stephen Cole.
I do not know where you're going with that.
So I have to kind of figure out a new title to give you.
Where's Monarch? Where's the theological position on monarch butterflies?
Well, one day you were kind of just sliding around as a Brethren pastor, okay? And then you went through your chrysalis period. And then look at this. You're a beautiful monarch butterfly leading the denomination.
You're saying
yes.
I was a worm.
Caterpillars aren't worms, Stephen. My gosh.
All right.
Go back to basic biology or whatever it is.
That's fine.
I have no idea.
That's fine. You're out of your depth. You should stop. We should talk about our guest instead.
Okay. Well, today we are blessed. You know what? Here's the common factor here. Yeah. We are both in this line of work because of the man that we're talking to today.
Absolutely.
So this man, I tell you, he inspired me to Jesus years ago. And he's kind of the reason your Texas butt got into the denomination.
That is true.
The man, the myth, the legend, Rickey Bolden.
Yes. Oh my.
Myth. He's not a myth.
Oh, he's myth.
That's it.
Mythical, but not a myth. He's real.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
He's real. So seriously though, you preached, Rickey, and you were in the audience as a kid?
So we were, but before Rickey introduce himself, I'm going to introduce kind of in my life.
Okay.
So I am a young punk teenager. I get drugged to church camp in the Southeast District at the time, now Southeast region. Okay. What was it? It was Fort Shenandoah or something like that.
Yes, that's where it was.
Shenandoah Meadows.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And it was in a holler. Okay.
Okay.
Like you had to go over a river, through woods, past grandma's house, and you got there. Okay.
Yeah.
And Rickey was pastoring the Southeast Christian Fellowship at the time in DC.
Okay.
And he and a contingent of folks came down. And here's this scrawny 5-foot-something white boy, okay, who meets all of Rickey's black goodness, okay?
Yes.
He was we had these tribe leaders, and he was my tribe leader.
Okay.
Yes.
And Thursday night was decision night, and so my row went up to respond. Rickey gave, we all know, we've heard the sermon, the Chicken Eagle sermon. Okay?
Yes.
I've heard that sermon at least 25 times. At least 25 times.
And so I went up because my friends went up and all this, and so that Rickey was preaching, and then there was a lady from Rickey's church, and a few years ago, he and I talked about Yummy Tyler.
Yes, Yummy. Yes.
And so Rickey preached, and Yummy just looked at me, and I don't know what the Spirit did in that concoction there. I felt my needs, and I sobbed, and I gave my life to Christ.
Yes.
It's history, as you would say.
That is beautiful.
Yeah, and so Rickey has been with me ever since.
That is beautiful.
Yes.
Rickey.
Yummy Tyler.
Yummy.
That's it. Yeah, that I am so awestruck. And unfortunately, Yummy has passed away. And it was just one of the saddest days because Yummy was just such a key person on our team. And I just remember that she came and she was so excited because she said, that's never happened to me. People respond to Jesus, and I talked to him and I said, Yummy, that's just the way the Lord works. But Jason, believe it or not, I am just awestruck because you are right. You are just a young man and we don't know one another's future. Only God knows that. And to see where you are today, I am just so excited. Just how
Rickey.
God has raised you up and just how he's using you, and I get to call you doctor now. I am just pumped
Hey.
up, man.
We're all three doctors.
Yeah, don't call us if you're sick.
This is the
We're all
podcast of three brethren docs.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
it. That's it.
But Stephen, you got to tell your story too.
I will, but here's what I want to comment about your story. The thing that stuck out to me most.
Besides the yummy Tyler piece.
The fact that you believed you were 5 foot tall when you were a kid. Laugh. You're not even 5 foot tall now, are you?
I am 5 foot tall.
Okay.
My wall's been in since I got married because that's what marriage does to you.
That's right. That's right.
My wife is now taller than I am. My son's taller than I am. My daughter's almost as tall as I am.
That's right.
Man in the house.
Man, good job.
So,
Well
yeah.
Yeah, Ricky was the pastor of the congregation that I was a part of. Ricky knew the congregation before I did because Ricky did some classes on evangelism, and we were a part of that. We were a church that was trying to blend together cultures in ministry, trying to do church with Black folks and white folks at the same time.
Amen.
And in the
Yeah.
deep South, that's a difficult task.
Yes.
Even in 2023, that's still a difficult
That's right.
The deep south and the far north is a hard thing
Yeah,
to do.
Yeah.
right. To blend cultures and that in that way. And so Ricky came through a series of events and was called as the pastor. And I worked for him and with him for a couple of years. And Ricky was like, well, the Lord's called you away. What can I do to help?
Mhm.
Which, walking into your boss walks in and says that to you, you think, oh, is this, I'm out the door? Is that what this is? It wasn't. To Ricky's credit, it wasn't. It was like genuinely, what can I do? How can I? And I remember it was that we could spend probably an hour in this moment here, but like I had interviewed in like 3 or 4 churches, and I got the run around from one significant church in Florida, and it was very discouraging. And Ricky's like, you know what? You've been leading some brethren stuff. You don't know it because he had Dale Stouffer and got a book.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Instead, here, lead this Bible study. And he goes, I think this might be a good fit for you. And here we are.
Yes.
Well,
And Stephen, the only reason I did that is because really you had outgrown everything, everywhere we placed you.
Yeah.
When I got there, you were a youth pastor. Then you went over and you took over worship and technology, and you outgrew all of that.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, Lord, the only other place for Stephen is to be a senior pastor. And you just did so well, and you outgrew every place we placed you in. And so to see you even here today as the executive director of the Brethren Church, chills go down my spine when I think about that.
Yeah. Well,
and don't worry, he's not going to tell you that you've outgrown this position. So
Yeah.
that,
That's it.
let's finish the interview. Let's find out. Let's finish the.
then we need to allow the man himself to introduce himself.
Please.
So Rickey Bolden, tell us a little about yourself.
Well, you know what? I have been married for 36 years. I have 5 children. They're all grown. Not one of them live within 1,000 miles of me. And so anytime I want to go see them, I have to really travel. I have my youngest son, Micah. He just got a master's in sociology, and he wants to be a counselor for young people. My next to the youngest son, Caleb, he's an IT guy, and he travels all over the world, and he just takes his computer and he works all day and just goes, and really checks out the world. Then my daughter, Leah, is a doctor. She is in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and God is just using Leah like you wouldn't believe. And now she's getting ready to do a fellowship, and I think she's going into pulmonary care. And then my son, Joshua, is still in Alabama. Huh?
Rick's a real doctor, not like the 3 of us. She could actually take care of you.
That's right.
She's a real doctor. Yeah.
That's right. When I go to the hospital, she goes in and she looks at my jacket and she says, Dad, this is what's going on in your body. And so she explains everything the doctor told me. And then my son, so I have Joshua, who is still in Alabama, and he works at a Kia plant, and he's in the midst of transition. And then I have Brandon, who is a teacher, a principal. And then I have my wife, who went back to school 3 years ago and got her nursing degree, and now she's a nurse.
Oh, fantastic.
That's amazing.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Great family.
Yeah, and your life is you've hopped around a few places. You've done like 1,000 different things. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? And really trying to figure out, like, Lord, what is it that you want me to do? So here it is, as old as I am, I'm still trying to figure out what the Lord wants me to do. Right now, what I do is I just meet with people around Jesus. And it's just so fascinating. I have a group of businessmen I meet with, and we just talk about Jesus and how and how do we empower them to be like Jesus. Then I have this wonderful group of pastors that I meet with, and we talk about strategy and how do we grow God's church even after a pandemic. And then I have a group of congressmen and that I meet with, and it is wonderful that, these guys are just so vulnerable and transparent. And so it's really, really a gift. And then I have 4 other brothers I meet with. We meet 3 days a week just to really talk about our lives, talk about some of the things that most people don't talk about, if there's sin and if we're entertaining sin. But I went on a journey of saying, how in the world do we really, really begin to walk together as brothers and to really be open and honest so that even if we're struggling, we're not afraid to tell one another. And so that's pretty much what I've been doing, man. And it has been the greatest journey of my life. I still travel quite a bit. I'm on my way. I go to Pennsylvania, then I go to Portland in August, and then I go to Kenya. And then I'll be going to Congo in October. So I still travel quite a bit.
And Rickey, you didn't say, but you live in Washington, D.C. area, right?
Yes.
That's where you're currently residing. Right. Okay.
Yes. I live. Yeah. And that's why it's the Hill is just so important. We had, like, for example, yesterday, we had one of the best times. Only one congressman was there, and I was there. And this guy named Lee Corder was there. He and I walked together on the Hill. And Lee was the Washington Redskins chaplain back in the 80s. So I know Lee from the NFL.
Oh, my goodness.
And so it was just so fascinating that it was just the 2 of us and this one congressman. And he just opened up. We were able to cry with him, weep with him, elevate him, encourage him. It was one of the greatest times I've ever had. But that's the thing that we're trying to do is, how do we walk with Jesus and be able to live in this space where we can be honest and where we can care for one another and pray for one another and love one another unconditionally, no matter what happens.
Wow. Well, that's a fantastic segue. And yeah. Rickey, having you on today to talk about community, as we've been revisiting the book of Brethren Way, which was a 10th anniversary edition, as we've said in other episodes, of Brian Moore's work from 2008. And Brian called the brethren back to community, to dig deep in what does that word mean. And so at the end of the chapter, he has this quote, Rickey, and I want to get your reflection on it, yes. Because really we wanted to capture the spirit of Brian of calling the brethren back to something. He says, quote, "The brethren don't have a corner on community by any means, but it was the experience and intent of our earliest leaders to be a community in which Christ dwelt. They chose to call themselves brethren, highlighting relationships above everything else. That they were German was obvious. That they baptized as an indication of their theology and commitment was obvious. It followed that they would be called German Baptist brethren, but in their earliest expression, they were simply brethren. They wanted to look like the earliest Christians of whom it was said, 'Behold, how they love one another,'" end quote. I just find such power in that. Yes. Rickey, there's a lot of airtime around this word community. We know that. Yes. From your work, when you encounter true community, what's going on in those circles?
Yes. And believe it or not, that word, and so I don't use the term brethren, I just say brothers. And so even as we walk together, every guy I meet with, that is the term. So because when we come together, we don't bring titles together. We don't come together as congressmen, as pastors, as leaders, as teachers. We're brothers. That is who we are. That defines who we are. And so that means that we are one, but we have all things in common. And there are no big I's and there are no little U's. That when we come to the table as brothers, we are together. And that's why I love, like, even whether it be with our businessmen, they can come and they can come as a brethren. And even as they come, if they want to weep, we can be there and we can minister because we're all brothers. And we all say we are co-strugglers, co-sharers in this world as we walk with Jesus. If I go on the Hill, and so guys have, we have one guy in our study. He's a medical doctor. and he's got so many accolades that it'll blow your mind. But to be able to go to him and we hug and we cry and we're able to be authentic with one another, that's what they're desperate for. They want someone that's not going to put them on a pedestal, someone that's going to love them unconditionally, someone that they know will not reject them. And when they say they love them, they really mean that they love them. And so to me, that's the essence of Brian's statement, is that as we walk together, it's so funny, Jason, but you are not my disciple, you're my brother. And Stephen, he was not my youth brother, he's still my brother. And that even as we sit, as we communicate this evening, that is such a joy. And so while I can be so excited about the success of both of you, you're my brothers. And what a privilege Jesus gives us to walk together.
Rickey, my gosh, first off, it's a high honor to call you brother. I want you to know that. Stephen, I do feel the same way about you.
Well, that's
but you're talking about congressmen.
Yeah.
Now, for people listening to this, they're going to go, the last thing they think about when they think of Capitol Hill is community. So tell me some of the ingredients for community and how you're seeing that show up in even places like the halls of Congress.
Yes, and I must say that we are in a challenging time because our politics, they have gotten so dangerous that we literally see each other as enemies.
Yes.
And so when I come, I look, and first of all, I don't take a political position. I don't care who you are. If you are a Republican, if you are a Democrat, independent, I don't care who you are, you're still my brother. Political opinions really doesn't matter when we come together as brothers. And so, but today but these political positions, they have been so weaponized that we can't see the opposite as a brother. And what's so funny is I talk to both sides and they both love Jesus. They have different opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, it is so funny to go in and then, and I remember one day I was with a brother and a brother out of Michigan. And boy, he spent the whole morning bashing Maxine Waters. He's a Republican. He spent the entire morning bashing Maxine Waters. Now, just imagine this. So I said, hey, well, let's go. I want to walk the halls and I just want to see what Jesus is saying to do. So we walked the halls and I knew exactly where Maxine Waters' office was. And so I walked up to her office and I said, hey, I think Jesus is telling us to go in. So let's go in. He said, I am not doing that. He was just adamant. I am not going into that office. She kills babies. And he had this whole list of things that she's done. And I said, the one thing that I love about Jesus, and when he talks about love, I said, and I think this could be biblical, which I believe it is biblical. I said that we always lead with love, then mercy, then the facts. Right now, you're allowing the facts to lead you into this office.
Rickey, real quick, repeat that.
I'm going to say,
yes, please repeat that.
This is going to preach.
Okay. You're a Black preacher, so you're used to repeating things multiple times.
Yes. No. See, whenever we encounter anyone in the world, I don't care if they're poor, if they're Black, they're white, they're Republican, Democrat, we are always to lead with love, then mercy, then the facts. The facts are always last in Scripture. So you remember when the woman when the woman was caught in adultery?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden these Pharisees, the first thing they bring her? The facts. Jesus, she committed adultery. Jesus, she should be stoned. All of these were facts. And then all of a sudden, you see Jesus respond to her. No facts, because he led with love. And then mercy. He just got on his knees and started writing, and all of a sudden they all disappeared. And the very last thing Jesus said to this woman was, go and sin no more. He didn't bring up specific issues about the fact, but he did bring up a fact that she was doing some things that were not right. And so I tell people that we must first lead with love, then mercy, then the facts. And so I can care less what political party you guys belong to, because you're my brother. And I always lead with love. and that I'm going to love you. I don't care. If Jason, if you say I'm a Republican and Stephen says I'm a Democrat, guess what? You both have tremendous value in the kingdom of God because we're brothers.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if that makes sense, but
how has that list got inverted? I don't know if we can get to that in this moment. Maybe that's way too deep of a question, because I think if we invert it, you break community. Like, I think that's why we break up community. So if we're being called back to this relationship, how has it got inverted? Is it just human nature that we've got it inverted?
Yeah, well, see, yeah, and what is so funny is I just don't think the church really understand love. So when Jesus comes in and Jesus is talking about, when Jesus talks about love, most people want to talk about the end of the book of Matthew, which is the Great Commandment or the Great Commission. But remember in chapter 22, he talks about the Great Commandment, and that is to love God and to love people. And so I think that before you can ever begin to love other people, you've got to have this wonderful relationship with God and then be able to love your neighbor as you love yourself. And so one of the things that I always say that is so impressive to me about Jesus, and you guys have heard me say this, is that this love relationship that Jesus had. And his love is so unconditional. I mean, can you imagine? Jesus' love is so deep that even if I sin, he forgives me over and over and over. And that's unconditional love. And so I always say this, Steve, I always say unconditional love can never be unconditional love until there is a condition.
Oh, let me tell you, you preached that last year.
Yeah, I know.
Conference, and I say it quite often.
No. But see, that's the key.
Yeah.
Is that whenever you find the condition, that's when you really get to see whether or not you love someone unconditionally. See, you've got so when all of a sudden a person from the LGBTQ community comes up, I remember, Stephen, not long ago, I would get nervous and start having all kinds of withdrawals, like, oh Lord, a sinner. And man, all of a sudden, when I came across that, wow, you're not loving unconditionally. He's just like you. They're sinners like you. And maybe what you should do is maybe build a relationship. And I had to begin to learn. I had to learn to move beyond conditions. Republican, Democrat, that's a condition. And a lot of times when we see someone from the other side, we just all of a sudden get polarized and said, I'm not talking to them. And we start saying, because they kill babies. Well, I may not have killed a baby, but I've done some pretty other ugly stuff.
Yeah, right.
And I'm just like them. And so for me, it is just like, how do we love people unconditionally? And the only way we can do it is that we have to, in every relationship, that's why we say, lead with love, then mercy, then the facts. In scripture, the facts were always last.
Yeah, so if this is an antidote to the craziness that is our current culture, at least in American culture, we can see the political climate is very difficult. It's causing division. Have you been in a place where you've seen this process of leading relationship first and facts second has actually repaired a relationship? Is it whether your life or between some other folks that you've been a part of? Like, yeah, can you share a story like that?
Yes. Well, you know what? I'm real. There is this wonderful, wonderful, godly lady, one of the greatest ladies. Her name is Margaret Kibbins, and she was a chaplain in the Air Force, outstanding. Now she's the first female that is the chaplain over the house. Oh, wow. And so she is the chaplain over. And so she's just a godly woman, great friend of mine, and I have tremendous respect. But this is what she said. She says, Rick, you know what? She said, what I hear all the time is that we love them, we just don't like them. And I'm like, how in the world can you like someone and not love them? That doesn't sound logical to me. How do you love someone but not like them? And Stephen, you heard it, especially every relationship that Jesus gave us, he says, okay, so if he calls us to be brothers, that's the highest call in the scriptures, to be brothers. But then if a person is not doing a good job at being a brother, then what's the next one? It's our neighbor. So even if we get a demotion to being a neighbor, Guess what Jesus says? He says, not only do you love your brother, but you love your neighbor.
Yeah.
And even if the person is our enemy, you know what Jesus says? Love your enemy. And so I think we've really messed up this whole thing, that as Christ followers, our assignment is to love. It is not a Republican assignment or a Democrat assignment. It is assignment from Jesus himself, to love the Lord your God with all of your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. The assignment comes from him. And so even as I go out into the world, what the question that I'm constantly asked is, Lord, how in the world do I love people today? That's my prayer every morning. Lord, send someone to me that I could love. I was driving by today and I saw a homeless guy, and sometimes they get on my nerves because in DC, you get homeless everywhere, but they're on every corner. And so I was getting a little frustrated because the guy kept knocking on my window, and I'm saying, Jesus, maybe this is the guy you want me to love. And maybe I'm to bless this guy. Yeah. And I had to change my posture. I must change it when I lead with love. Yeah. I must change it. You cannot have a posture of love when you're leading with it. You can, or a posture of hate or a posture of arrogance. You can't have that posture when you're leading with love. And so every person, if I go in the grocery store, I'm asking the question, God, who did you send me? Who are you going to send me in this place that I can love? And it may be the lady who can't pay her bill. It may be the lady who's dropped something and I can pick it up for. But Lord, you lead me to that, because that's our purpose. When you look at Jesus, they said, Jesus, in all of the Bible, in all of the laws in the Bible, which is the greatest? And Jesus, that's your purpose. So I think it's difficult because we've made it difficult. And now we want people that we love to be like us. You know what I mean? If they're like us, if politically, then we can love them pretty easily.
I want people that are easy to love.
That's exactly that's right. That's right. Yeah. And Jesus is not there. Yeah. Because if you go look at the life of Jesus, he was always loving the difficult people to love. You remember Legion? I mean, who would have loved Legion the way Jesus loved them other than Jesus? Yeah. I mean, I would have probably took out like 9 foot with that guy, because it's hard to love people when it's not, when they're not easy.
Yeah. Well, let me ask this, Rickey, because, in your introduction, you talked about you have a couple of brothers that you walk with and you share it all with them,
Yes.
Because there comes a time where love says, in my desire for the best for you, there's some, dare we say, accountability that comes with it.
Oh, yes.
What does loving accountability look like when sometimes those things, those pesky facts we may not agree on, actually are things that matter greatly, and we need to kind of, in love, I do want to talk about, I don't want to lose that. Love is the center.
Yes.
But with love as the center, I love you too much to allow you to keep going down that path.
Yes. Every week that happens in our group. And so like on Tuesday, we had a brother come in, and this brother was talking about his struggle with masturbation, and he can't overcome it. And he said, brothers, I can come here and be fake with you all and tell you that, I'm holy and godly. He said, but I'm struggling. And so the brother says, okay, so what can we do? How do we walk with you through this? And so, one brother recommended, what if we send you to an Everyman Battles conference? And the 2 other brothers said, no, that wouldn't be right. He said, why don't we go with it to the conference? And then we can learn. Yeah. And so it's just being able to look at someone and say authentically, this is my brother. I've got to have their best interests at heart. Most of the time when I travel, I take one of them with me. Because when Jesus sent out the disciples, he sent them out 2 by 2.
Well, Rickey, I'm saying I think your name is something about community that really does scare the crap out of us. That's a radical vulnerability right there. Trust another brother or sister enough that I'm going to just bare my soul, and you're going to still receive me and still be there for me.
Yes.
I think fundamentally, I have an anxiety at times of going, if I did share my true self, you'll reject me. And so I don't share it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so we keep up appearances.
Yes. Yes. I remember one day in our group, we had this guy, and everyone could tell he was in a tremendous amount of pain. And he'd been holding himself back from us. And I will never forget when he finally, he just made it up in his mind, I'm going to tell the brothers. And he told us. And it was great to see another brother starting to weep. And he asked this brother, he said, what have we done that would make you feel unsafe telling us that? What have we done? Obviously, we have created an environment where you didn't feel safe.
Yeah.
And we want you to tell us, what can we do so that when you come, you always feel safe in this group? And I just think that is just so important. Anytime you're meeting with a group of brothers, is that over time, ask the Lord, make us safe. And so the greatest thing that we can do is start sharing our own junk. Every mistake I've made, my brothers know. Every sin I've committed, my brothers know. And you know what? I feel so safe. I feel like I can tell them they're not going to reject me. I feel like they're going to give me the best advice that they possibly can give me. And so I would just say the key word is creating this environment. See, that's community, is that when you feel safe. And so even, and Jason, even in your relationship with Stephen. And so even like a question like, hey, do you feel safe around me, or that you could tell me anything that's going on in your life? How safe do you feel? Right. Because most people don't have a relationship that they feel safe enough to be able to be 100% transparent in.
True. You know, Rick, true. In your story regarding that gentleman, and y'all strategize some ideas. Well, we can send you to a conference. I think the critical piece here, which I think there's some false sense of community. Well, I'm going to make sure you're doing the right thing. That's what love is. It's making sure you're not, I won't let you stay. Yes. I think the key part of that story is you went with.
Yes. And that's what the scripture says. Right. The scripture says, and Jesus was with them. That's Mark 3, about 13 and 14. He says, and Jesus was with them. And that's what really allows us to break down the wall, because we know we have one brother in our group, and sometimes he can be kind of arrogant, very wealthy guy, and he can be a little arrogant, but man, he's taken some hits over the last, we've been working together for 6 years. Over the last 6 years, he's taken hits because he is arrogant and he does want to be the perfect guy. And we're constantly saying that is not what we're looking for. And I mean, just the first time he was transparent with us. And he talked about, you know what his issue was? Loneliness. He's 65 years old and they forced him to retire. And for the first time, he had to deal with rejection. And wow. For us to be able to sit around and say, let's talk about that. Yeah. How did it feel? Right. And tell us what really caused you wounds. And so it's just, I'm telling you, this whole safe piece is probably, if I look back at our group, my personal group, people have to feel safe. And even with the brothers that I'm walking with that are pastors, you know, I try to create an environment, and I go in and tell them, guys, let me tell you, I'll talk about women, and I'll be very honest about women. Guys, listen, if you want to blow it, you get out of line with women. And so I'll go and just talk about me. And then all of a sudden they'll turn and they're looking like, wow. And then all of a sudden another one will come up and he'll say, you know what? I have done something. Let me tell you about it. And so I believe transparency breeds transparency. Yeah. That when you have the courage to open up and you take the risk of stepping out of your comfort zone, I think other people will walk into that door.
Well, Rickey, this is a great place to land. And I want to close because in a very serendipitous way. The way that Brian ends this chapter is the same call you're providing, and I want to read it.
Okay.
Yes.
And so Brian asks, can we transcend the years and attempt to become communities characterized by loving relationships, mutual caring, making allowance for each other's faults because of our love, from Ephesians 4:2. To be a people who are patient, humble, gentle, and unified. Can we be less preoccupied with our budgets and buildings and more concerned with people? Can we be less concerned with institutional survival and more concerned with service to others? Can we be less self-serving and more self-giving? Can we be less competitive and more compassionate? Can we offer a community of love and trust to a world that is fragmented, fractured, and friendless? And here's what I thought about you, brother.
Yes.
Someone called for the church to be, quote, the safest place on earth, end quote.
Oh,
Let this be a great part of the Brethren witness in the 21st century.
yes.
Wow.
Isn't that awesome?
I think that's a high ideal to call the church to.
Yes.
Be that safe place that you're talking about. So Rickey Bolden, thank you. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, brothers. You both, you and Stephen, man. It's been such a joy.